It's been a rocky start to 2024 for the US aircraft maker Boeing. Fallout is mounting from a door panel blowout on a 737 MAX in January. Just on Friday, the FBI in the United States told passengers on that Alaska Airlines flight they may have been victims of a crime. That incident was the first in a string of technical failures for Boeing this year. CGTN's Poppy Imputeng has details.
When the door of an Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 9 flight departing Portland, Oregon blew out soon after takeoff in January, those on board were shocked. Passengers filed lawsuits, and the incident prompted an audit by U.S. federal investigators into Boeing's safety standards.
Any words of assurance for customers who are too scared to fly on a Boeing plane?
We believe in our airplanes. We field safe airplanes. Our people do. We have confidence in the safety of our airplanes, and that's what all of this is about. And we fully understand the gravity.
Despite the strong words from Boeing's CEO, the U.S.'s Federal Aviation Administration found that there were quality control failings, and an action plan was requested, which is due in May. Since then, though, Boeing has very much stayed on the radar as more incidents have been reported. The latest, the discovery that an external panel was missing from a plane that landed in Oregon. Just a few days before that, halfway across the world, reports that a Boeing 737 LATAM flight from Australia to New Zealand plunged unexpectedly, injuring dozens of passengers.
A massive jolt happened, and I was awakened, and I looked up to see the gentleman that was sitting next to me on the roof of the plane. I'm looking at him fully outstretched with his back on the roof of the plane, and then he came crashing down to the floor. I saw not heads, a few neck braces being applied, people being patched up with cuts and bruises. The gentleman beside me suffered some rib injuries.
Earlier this month in the U.S., a wheel fell off a United Airlines Boeing 777 plane in San Francisco during takeoff. There were no injuries on the ground. The same day, a United Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft rolled off the runway in Texas after landing. As federal investigators take a closer look at Boeing and its commitment to quality and safety standards, the company's stock has declined, down about 30%. Analysts say more incidents could cost the company billions of dollars. Poppy Imputeng, CGTN, Washington.
As Boeing grapples to address the safety and reliability of its planes, it's burning through cash and facing production delays. That could soon affect you, the traveller.
But at the moment, demand is strong. Capacity is constrained because of the challenges being faced by Airbus and Boeing. And I think fares are going to rise this year and probably next year as well.
So besides Ryanair, United and Southwest Airlines are among carriers that may have to trim their flight schedules because of a plane shortage. This while demand for travel in the US and around the world continues to soar sky high. With us now to delve more into what's happening at Boeing is Mark Hackett. He's an airline captain and pilot instructor. Mark, great to have you with us. Thanks for being with us. So we've seen Boeing suffer this series of technical issues. To what extent could you attribute this to possibly a system-wide flaw in Boeing's production chain?
Well, you know, I've grappled with that question, as I know you have and a lot of other media outlets have, on how could such a company like Boeing fall from such a high level. And I really think it has to do with the change in safety culture, unfortunately. They have changed from what they used to be, and they're grappling with heavy losses from the 737 MAX program. And unfortunately, I think we're starting to see some of the cracks because of that.
Yeah, you talk about a change in safety culture. The FAA's audit found non-compliance issues with Boeing's manufacturing process control. What do you make of that?
I think that's extremely troubling. The FAA is providing oversight for these manufacturers, which means they are working hand in hand with the manufacturers. Now, they have been giving away some of their rights to the manufacturers. It's called delegation. And I think we're starting to see that some of the delegation that was supposed to happen for things like paint colors and exit signs is starting to go into larger, deeper systems. And it's producing an issue within their safety culture because basically they're auditing themselves.
And Mark, how does the sort of maintenance system work when it comes to airlines? I mean, to what extent are the incidents that we've seen due to flaws in Boeing aircraft, for which Boeing is responsible, versus issues at airlines?
Well, look, airlines all have their separate maintenance programs, but they're guided by regulations from the FAA. We're talking about extremely advanced mechanics, programs, management. These aircraft are maintained to the highest degree. Now, they can only be as good as some of the manufacturers' suggested procedures are, though, as we've seen, and I'm sure you're going to talk about the last incident with the Alaska Airlines door falling off.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with the airline. That had nothing to do with the actual maintenance of the aircraft. It had to do with the actual manufacturing.
Yeah, we're also hearing now that the FBI has launched an investigation into that. It could be a crime that was committed over there. But financially, how is this affecting Boeing? Short term and, of course, long term as well.
Well, short term, I don't think it's affecting them quite yet. I think they're still grappling with the whys and hows and what do we do to fix it. But long term, the 737 MAX program has been plagued with shortfalls. We've seen several accidents that have come out of it. And we've, of course, seen that the grounding of the fleet, which has cost airlines hundreds of millions of dollars and ultimately has cost Boeing that same price. The number that I've seen recently is around $30 billion since the MAX 737 program has been instituted. And that's not a small number. That's got to be hard for any company, even the size of Boeing, to handle.
Right. This is a huge corporation. I mean, it's one of the fabled American companies, you know, known throughout the world. So how does, you know, the company overcome the damage that we're seeing to its reputation, both among customers and, of course, purchasers as well?
I'm a firm believer that any culture has to change from the top. You can't change it from the bottom. The leadership has to be on board with the old Boeing ways, with the old safety culture. Look, Airbus has incorporated people in their top ranks that are actual engineers. There's nothing against the CEO of Boeing, but he's an accountant. I'm not sure if he understands the old safety culture, and I think if he doesn't, he needs to find somebody, or the company and the board needs to find somebody that's going to be able to install that safety culture again so the public can once again feel safe to fly on those airplanes.
Right, you mentioned Airbus. Do they get any benefits out of this?
Well, they do. They're the primary competitor to Boeing. Airbus is not without its own problems. Airbus, of course, launched the A320neo. Its nomenclature is new engine option. It's a more fuel-efficient, turbo-geared engine that has had its own list of problems. They've seen some of the grounding of their own fleet, but I don't think that this is going to be a missed opportunity by Airbus. I think we've seen them overtake Boeing in sales in the recent years, and I think they're poised to do much more, especially within this turmoil.
Right, and those problems that Airbus has experienced, have they been able to overcome them?
They have fixes in place. I'm an Airbus captain myself, so I understand the aircraft very well. It's when you get into these types of turbo or these geared turbofan engines, problems are going to arise, but it's a new development for both engine manufacturers and aircraft manufacturers. So they've got a handle on it, and I don't see any problems with that in the future.
Right, and when it comes to Boeing, to what extent should passengers be concerned about the safety of Boeing planes?
They shouldn't. You know, these are very far and in between instances. We are seeing lapse in safety culture. I understand that. But you've got to understand 80, 90,000 flights a day take off and depart around the world. A lot of those are aircraft from Boeing and Airbus. We're not seeing an accident ratio that we have in the past, and that's good. That means the overall aviation standards and aviation culture for safety is much higher than it used to be. So I don't think anybody should be worried about flying on a Boeing airplane. Yes, these instances do happen, but they're far and in between, and I think we're putting enough light on it right now that management and executives out of these companies can fix the issues.
Right, Mark, you know, as I said earlier on, there are companies like Ryanair, United, as well as Southwest Airlines. They're among carriers that are going to be trimming their flight schedules. And I'm wondering, what's the outlook for airfares and for flights? I mean, we're getting into the very busy summer travel period now, especially in the northern hemisphere.
Well, I think we're starting to see a little bit of trim back from these schedules. And a lot of it has to do with pilot shortages, with maintenance mechanic shortages. So I think that's why you're starting to see some of the airplanes are really full right now. I think you're going to see prices go up as we get into the deeper summer months, basically because of capacity and demand. Capacity is very strong. The airlines are actually reaping the rewards of a very strong market right now. But I think you're going to see prices go up. You're going to see capacity dwindle back just a little bit as they grapple with some of these industry-wide issues that they're having.
Mark, we are going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.